Josie Duggar's emergency hospital rush. The Duggars face their most emotional night yet. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. For Duggar family latest news update, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. The night began quietly in Town, Arkansas. The Duggar home, usually filled with laughter, piano sounds, and conversations echoing down the hall, was unusually silent. But by midnight, everything changed. Michelle Duggar's trembling voice broke through the silence as she whispered the words no parent ever wants to say. "Jim Bob, call 911, it's Josie." The frantic moments it started as a regular evening. The younger Duggar children were finishing their dinner, and Josie, now 15, the youngest of the 19 Duggar children, had been sitting beside her mom, quietly helping her clean up. She had seemed fine, even cheerful, laughing with her nieces and nephews earlier that day. But then she complained of sudden dizziness, saying her heart was beating too fast. Michelle thought maybe it was anxiety or dehydration. Josie had always been sensitive and easily overwhelmed in crowded settings. Yet within minutes, her skin turned pale, her hands cold, and her breathing shallow. Jim Bob ran to her side, calling out her name, while Jana grabbed a blanket and wrapped her up. "It's okay, Josie. You're okay," Jana repeated, her voice cracking with fear. But Josie couldn't respond. Her eyes fluttered, and she slumped forward. Michelle's heart dropped. Memories from 15 years earlier, when Josie had been born premature at just 25 weeks, came rushing back like a flood. The tiny baby who had once fought for her life in the NICU was now again in danger. Within minutes, the Duggar home turned into chaos. Jana dialed 911. Jinger, who happened to be visiting from Los Angeles, held Michelle's trembling hand as the ambulance sirens echoed closer. The ride to the hospital, the paramedics worked quickly, hooking Josie up to monitors and checking her vitals. Her pulse was dangerously low. "She's not responding well," one paramedic murmured, looking at Michelle with urgency. "We need to move fast." Jim Bob followed the ambulance in his SUV, praying aloud the entire way. "Lord, please spare our little girl again. You've carried her once, do it again." Inside the ambulance, Michelle held Josie's hand tightly. The rhythmic beeping of machines filled the air. "Mom," Josie whispered faintly, her eyes half open. "Am I going to be okay?" Michelle forced a tearful smile. "Yes, sweetheart. You're going to be fine. Jesus is right here with us." When they reached Washington Regional Medical Center, the ER team rushed Josie into the trauma room. The doctors quickly began tests, ECGs, oxygen checks, and scans. The family waited outside, silent, anxious, clinging to faith, the waiting room of fear. The hospital waiting room was filled with Duggar siblings, cousins, and close family friends. Jana paced back and forth. Jessa clutched Ben's hand tightly while trying to comfort her own kids, who were half asleep on her lap. Joanna arrived with Austin, her eyes red from crying. "Any update?" she asked, her voice trembling. Michelle shook her head. "They're still running tests." Her heart rate dropped again. They said it could be something with her blood sugar, or maybe her heart. No one could speak after that. The silence was deafening. Meanwhile, Jinger sat apart, her phone in her hand, looking at an old photo of Josie from years ago, a fragile baby with tubes and wires, smiling weakly in a NICU incubator. Jinger whispered to herself, "She's always been a fighter." Jim Bob's breaking point for years. Jim Bob had been known as the steady rock of the family. He was always composed, always the one to reassure everyone that faith conquers fear. But this night broke him. He stepped into the hospital chapel, alone, and dropped to his knees. "God," he prayed aloud, voice cracking, "You gave us Josie when we thought we'd lost her. You saved her once. Please, please don't take her from us now." Tears streamed down his face. The strong patriarch suddenly looked like a father terrified of losing his child. For a moment, he didn't care about the cameras, the show, or the public image. All that mattered was his little girl's life. The doctor's news after what felt like hours. Dr. Williams, the same physician who had treated Josie as a baby, entered the waiting area. His face was calm, but serious to MR. "And Mrs. Duggar," he began softly, "Josie had a cardiac event, likely triggered by severe dehydration and an electrolyte imbalance. It caused her blood pressure to plummet. "We've stabilized her for now, but she's in critical observation," Michelle gasped, gripping Jim Bob's arm. "Is she going to be okay?" Dr. Williams nodded slowly. "She's responding to treatment, but she's very weak. We need to monitor her closely for the next 48 hours. Relief flooded the room. Jessa cried openly. Jana hugged Jinger, whispering, "She's going to make it. Thank God." But the ordeal was far from over. Flashbacks to the NICU as Michelle sat by Josie's bedside later that night. She couldn't help but remember those early days after Josie's premature birth in December 2009. Tiny, fragile, weighing barely over 1 pound, Josie had defied all odds. The doctors had warned them she might not survive, but Michelle and Jim Bob refused to give up. They prayed day and night, and after months in the NICU, Josie came home. Now, 15 years later, Michelle found herself whispering the same prayers beside the same daughter. The machines were different, the circumstances new, but the emotion was painfully familiar. "Lord," she murmured, brushing Josie's hair back, "we've seen your miracles before. Do it again." The family gathers. Word of Josie's hospitalization spread quickly. The Duggar siblings who lived far away, Jill in Oklahoma, John David and Abby, all rushed to be there. Even family members who had become distant due to the Duggar family's controversies reached out. Jill, who had been publicly estranged from Jim Bob for years, showed up quietly at the hospital lobby. When Jim Bob saw her, his eyes softened. Without a word, he opened his arms, and Jill embraced him. "I couldn't stay away," Jill whispered. "I'm glad you didn't," he said simply. For the first time in years, the entire Duggar family, fractured by time and disagreement, united again under one emotion: love for Josie. Josie's awakening. By morning, Josie's condition began to stabilize. The monitors showed improvement. Michelle hadn't slept all night, holding her daughter's hand. Then, around 7 a.m., a soft voice broke the silence. "Mom." Michelle looked up. Josie's eyes were open. She looked tired but conscious. Michelle burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. "Oh, honey, you scared us so much." Josie smiled weakly. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to." Michelle leaned in. "Don't you ever apologize for fighting to live." Jim Bob entered the room, holding a cup of coffee and his Bible. He smiled through tears. "There's my miracle girl, reflections and faith." The Duggars have always been vocal about their faith, but this crisis brought them closer than ever. In an emotional moment captured later on a family video, Jim Bob said, "We often think life will just keep going smoothly, but God reminds us how fragile it really is." Josie's life has always been a miracle from her first breath to now. And tonight, he showed us again how powerful prayer can be. Jessa added, "We take so many things for granted: our kids' laughter, their health. But when you almost lose one, you see life differently." The final fall, Jinger Duggar and Jeremy Vuolo's shocking divorce and arrest scandal, the cracks behind the smile. For years, Jinger Duggar Vuolo and Jeremy Vuolo had been the couple everyone believed had escaped the shadow of the Duggar family's conservative traditions. Fans saw them as the modern Duggars, stylish, free-thinking, and living a glamorous California life far away from the quiet streets of Arkansas. But behind the radiant smiles, the Instagram-perfect photos, and the glossy interviews, something had been quietly breaking for months, perhaps even years. Those close to the family had noticed subtle changes. Jinger's posts became distant, more reflective, and often carried quotes about finding inner peace and the courage to choose freedom. Jeremy, once her biggest cheerleader, started appearing less frequently by her side. What began as whispers among fans quickly became speculation. Was Jinger truly happy, or was she trapped in a marriage built on appearances? According to a close family friend, tension between the couple had been brewing ever since Jinger's memoir hit the shelves, a raw, honest book that described her struggles growing up in the Duggar household. In the book, she described unlearning fear and finding her own faith separate from her parents' rigid teachings. While many applauded her bravery, insiders say Jeremy felt exposed by her words. Jeremy wanted control, the friend said quietly. He liked being seen as the strong, wise husband guiding Jinger through her new life. But when she started thinking for herself, Speaking for herself, it shattered his image. The public image war. As weeks turned into months, the cracks widened. Jeremy, a former pastor, had begun pouring his energy into a new church project in Los Angeles, but it wasn't going well. Financial struggles, internal conflicts, and public criticism followed him like a shadow. Some members accused him of being too controlling, while others claimed he used his church platform for fame rather than faith. Duggar, meanwhile, had been quietly meeting with a documentary producer. Rumors spread that she was preparing to expose hidden truths about her upbringing and possibly about her marriage. Jeremy was furious when he found out. He told her she was destroying everything they'd built, one insider recalled. He begged her to cancel the interviews, but she refused. Their once Instagram-perfect home became a battlefield. Neighbors reported shouting late at night, the sound of slamming doors, and even police cars visiting their residence at least twice in early October. Though no arrests were made at the time, fans began to notice something was off. Jeremy deleted dozens of photos of Duggar from his social media accounts. Duggar stopped wearing her wedding ring. On one chilling evening, she posted a cryptic message. Sometimes freedom means walking away, even from the things you once prayed for. The breaking point: everything changed on a cool November morning in Los Angeles. Paparazzi gathered outside the couple's home after receiving a tip that police had been called to the Vuolo residence once again, this time for a domestic disturbance. Reports indicate that neighbors heard screaming, followed by a crash. When officers arrived, they found Duggar visibly shaken and Jeremy arguing with police. According to the police report later leaked to tabloids, Jeremy was taken into custody for disorderly conduct and obstruction of justice. Though no physical assault was confirmed, authorities noted evidence of property damage and verbal aggression. Cameras captured the shocking moment Jeremy was led away in handcuffs, his once polished image now shattered. Duggar stood on the porch, silent, her eyes red from tears, but her posture steady. That image, Duggar standing alone as her husband was arrested, spread like wildfire across social media within hours. Fans were stunned. Some refused to believe it. Others claimed they saw it coming. The perfect Duggar couple had finally fallen apart. The announcement 2 days later, Duggar released an official statement through her representative. The message was short but powerful. After much prayer and consideration, I have made the difficult decision to file for divorce from Jeremy Vuolo. My priority now is the emotional well-being of my children and myself. I ask for privacy and grace during this painful time. That single statement sent shockwaves through both the Duggar fandom and the Christian influencer community. The girl who once followed every family rule had now done the unthinkable. She walked away from her husband and filed for divorce. Meanwhile, Jeremy's representatives claimed the arrest was a misunderstanding and that he was fully cooperating with authorities. But sources inside the LAPD confirmed he had spent the night in custody and was released on bail pending a court hearing. Duggar was spotted days later moving into a small apartment with her sister Jana by her side. According to eyewitnesses, Jana had flown in from Arkansas to help her sister start over. She looked heartbroken, one witness said. But there was also a quiet strength in her eyes, like she finally made peace with her choice. The Duggar family reaction back in Arkansas. The news hit the Duggar family like a storm. Jim, Bob, and Michelle were reportedly devastated by Duggar's decision. For years, they had maintained that marriage was sacred and divorce was never an option. But their daughter's words and the police reports made it impossible to defend Jeremy publicly. According to a family insider, Jim Bob initially wanted to release a joint family statement defending Jeremy, but several siblings, including Jill and Joanna, strongly opposed it. Jill told her father that standing by Jeremy would mean betraying Duggar, the source said. It led to one of the worst family arguments in years. Ultimately, the Duggars stayed mostly silent, releasing only a vague comment on social media. We love our daughter deeply and are praying for her and her family during this challenging season. But fans noticed that Jessa and Jana quietly liked Duggar's statement, a subtle but powerful show of support. The media frenzy, the media went into overdrive. Entertainment sites, tabloids, and YouTube gossip channels flooded with headlines. Jeremy Vuolo arrested after domestic dispute. Duggar files for divorce, breaking Duggar family tradition. Duggar drama explodes. The California scandal that shook the family. Interviews from former Duggar friends painted a picture of a marriage that had been unraveling for years. Some claimed Jeremy had grown increasingly controlling as Duggar gained independence. Others alleged that his ministry was failing financially and that stress had changed him. He wasn't the same guy anymore, one acquaintance said. The pressure, the fame, the expectations, it all built up. And Duggar was done pretending. Even mainstream outlets like People magazine and Entertainment Tonight picked up the story, interviewing psychologists about the emotional cost of growing up in fundamentalist households. Suddenly, Duggar wasn't just a reality TV star. She was being portrayed as a symbol of survival and self-liberation, the courtroom battle.